If I can maybe move the shade a bit more to get some light in here. For some reason, it's always so dark whenever I stream, but getting close. I think that's set up okay. Rocking the Santa style, you guys already know. I'll wait until more people start joining in. Let's see here. What's up, boys? Franco Greco, my man. Wes Dixon. What's up, guys? Hopefully you're doing well. Everyone tuning into the stream. Being festive today. The tree is looking more stylized. If you guys have followed me on Twitter, I've been doing some status updates with the tree. And some style as well over here to celebrate the holidays. Yes, of course, Franco, you can join. Mr. Happa, Danielle, Anzaldi, Bat Spidey, Superior Chris, Andre, Cine, I'm sorry I pronounced that wrong, Superior Chris, Spider Gamer 52, Red Superman 81-9, Batman Apprentice, Admire X_X17, Red Superman 819. What's up, guys? Hopefully you're doing well. We got some stuff to go over today. While we're joining in, triple check that the stream actually tweeted out for sure, and that it is actually live streaming for sure, because you always know I always have problems streaming, which is why, little shout out, small plug, and my microphone is on, which is good. I did do a live stream yesterday on my friend's channel, Ronnie, who you guys may know as News to Astonish, where we were on his channel, who's fantastic, and we discussed the recent news that Marvel put out for the Disney Investor Day. If you guys are interested in my thoughts about that, with the shows that they're going to be making and the movies and stuff, there's a lot to go over there. I was thinking about doing it a video for me on my own channel, but I know you guys mainly care about our main man, which I do as well. So instead, we did a fun collab video, which is over 2 hours long, which we did also discuss about Spider-Man stuff alongside of the movies and shows on his channel. So I will leave it as a link in the description after this stream is over, and you guys can also check it on Twitter or News to Astonish on his YouTube channel and see it there. Alongside of that, fun fact, today is December 15th, I believe? December 14th, and today is actually Bill Roseman's birthday. The main man himself, Vice President of Marvel Games, who we all love. Sadly, I've never been able to interview him. I met him in person. He's obviously fantastic, and you guys see him in the interviews and stuff on YouTube and videos and stuff. He's exactly how you see him on those videos in real life, and he's a fantastic guy. So if you guys feel happy enough to wish Bill a happy birthday, share that online, spread your excitement and love for Bill. I'm sure he would appreciate that. He's probably, I think he just turned 50 today, which is awesome. My own dad is over 50 years old. He's actually close to 60 years old, but it's fantastic that Bill, I think, has hit the big 5 decades solid 50, Walter White style at the beginning of Breaking Bad. But that's fantastic, and we're just waiting for more people to join in. Hopefully you guys are doing okay, having a nice, is it Monday? Tuesday? I've lost track of all the days. Monday afternoon, which is pretty cool. And Franco, yes, I will invite you to the party. Sorry, I forget about that. Maybe you can invite me, actually, and then I can join in, and that'd be easier for me to see. What's up, Shotgun Cena? Hopefully you're doing good. Shotgun Cena 37, Arachnid Man, Wesley Butler, Izzy, Matthew Hall Fitzsimmons, and yes, correct, 2 years ago today is also the 2-year anniversary of Into the Spider-Verse, which I'm wearing the animated suit, so we should probably switch that to celebrate the occasion. Completely forgot about that, so I'll probably be fawning over Spider-Verse during this playthrough, this certain stream today. Let's also apply the mods, because that would be best suited for our boy. Let's see, not that one. I'm going to do Vibe the Verse here, and then I'm going to keep the air trick one, so we'll do the onomatopoeia one right there. Boom, Into the Spider-Verse, because what's up, dude? Another guy on the internet. Hey, Evan. Hey, dude. How's it going? Benny Plays. I love the animated suit so much. It is fantastic. Dylan, I'm a big fan of H2O. McCallum, can I send you a party invite? Maybe later. For right now, I'm going to get in a party with my main man, Franco, which you probably see the screen right now is not in the game. Join his party, and I think you'll all be able to hear Franco before we get started, because he's the man. Buddy! What's up, bro?
Oh, you know, Chilling. You?
I'm doing good. Say hi to the chat, Franco. They've missed you. I've missed you as well. Which, by the way, you guys don't even understand. I'm like half excited and half frustrated because I'm reliving exactly what Franco and I lived through during the Game Awards, which is the same day as the Investor Day, when we saw, first off, Miles Morales didn't win at the Game Awards, which is depressing. But of course, Last of Us won everything. But Franco and I were watching both of them simultaneously. Franco and I were watching the Disney Investor Day and the Game Awards at the same time. And when they showed the announcement for the Marvel stuff, we finally got to see, oh, who's directing the Fantastic Four movie. And it was confirmed, of course, John Watts. And I was like half ready to give up on life itself. I'm like, why? Why him? We were in pain. I still am in disbelief, but both Franco and I were like shocked to see that announcement. Like, are you kidding me? That's insane.
Like, I was ahead of you. Yeah, I was ahead of you when we were watching that, and I told you, like, oh, John Watts is directing, and you're like, you're lying. I'm like, no, I promise. Like, no, why would I be lying? And then, like, you saw it, and you're like, oh.
Oh, wait, it's real? It's a real thing? Oh, boy.
Is this not an early April Fool's joke?
Yes, dude. Oh, my God. Did we just skip, like, a couple months or something? Like, I don't even know myself, but... let's see. Superior Chris says the Fantastic Four is going to try to be the next Iron Legion. Maybe. I mean, if it's anything... Here's the thing. I think it's safe to say that movie with John Watts will at least be better than Fan Four Stick. I will give that, him the benefit of the doubt in that regard, because any movie will be better than Fan Four Stick. At the same time, I really hope he gets the characters and narrative aspect of the Fantastic Four correct for that movie, because if he doesn't, I'm going to be pretty upset. News to Astonish, which is exactly right on cue. My main man, Ronnie. Yo, Evan, how's it going? I'm doing good, dude. Enjoying the holidays. The Christmas tree and some nutcracker decorations are set up behind me. I'm doing fantastic. Hopefully you guys are enjoying your holidays as well. Happy Hanukkah for those people as well who are celebrating Hanukkah. I know Yuri Lowenthal, by the way, is actually celebrating Hanukkah, which is awesome. So that's very, very cool. Also, Merry Kwanzaa, Happy Kwanzaa for anyone out there who celebrates Kwanzaa too. Let's see, but we were... Oh, so in the title, of course, before we get into Franco, because I know Franco has a lot to say about recent news with the Marvel Investor Day and also Game Awards, but also mainly what's going on today, if you see in the title, is actually a game that I've never pretty much talked about on videos and stuff, but one that I've kept my eye on, because everyone's been hyping it up ever since it was announced in like 2012, 2013. And I've personally never been a fan of this company, or what I should rather say is I've never really played their games in full degree. Like, I've played elements of The Witcher 3, and I'm also not a fan of like first-person games. That's just a personal taste. So when I saw this game being announced, I'm like, okay, that's cool. And then when it's finally out, like, of course, so many people want to play it because it's been so long for them to actually have it come out. But then, what people are reporting, since I personally do not own the game, I've only seen footage of it, is I'm talking about Cyberpunk 2077, developed by CD Projekt Red, and the game is not at all good. On current-gen consoles, at least, I will say. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
PC is probably fine, and also if you're playing on next-gen consoles through backwards compatibility, it'll probably also hold up pretty well. And then, of course, later on in the year, they will have the fully next-gen version of Cyberpunk with like the PS5 version and Xbox Series X version of the game. Just like Marvel's Avengers, like they had to delay that because the production wasn't working out as much for them as they would have liked it to. So mainly, people who are playing the game on next-gen consoles aren't necessarily playing the game on next-gen. They're playing it through backwards compatibility. So, in a way, you're kind of getting the full experience, but not really, because you still need to see exactly what the next-gen capabilities are for Cyberpunk when it comes to next-gen consoles on a fully next-gen game. But what I'm trying to get at, I know it's so confusing, right, dude? Like, it's like you gotta keep up with all the lingo of the tech world with the consoles and stuff. It's insane. So the point is, because this is, I think, very important to talk about for the gaming industry, since in general I'm very interested in the gaming industry as a whole. I want to see it thrive and have the people involved within it make great games and share their talents and passion with gamers like ourselves. But when you see the result of what happened now with Cyberpunk on current gen, at least for Xbox One and PS4, it is not good. It's not doing too well in regards of performance, and even some people with graphics. But mainly in terms of performance, the game has like as much, if not more bugs, I think, than Marvel's Avengers, with people T-posing, glitching through cars. Like there's entire videos memeing the glitches itself with like Keanu Reeves and stuff, so it's hilarious. But the point is, CD Projekt Red developed the game initially for current gen, or what you could possibly call last gen, of the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. That was the whole thing, because they announced it so early on, and then they said, oh, it's going to be a next gen only game for what's now being called last gen consoles. But now the game came out, and then the product is out for people to play, and it's like crashing like crazy. It's barely even a functioning product for people who don't have the access to buy a next gen console like myself, and I'm sure a lot of you watching. But it's crazy to see how poor the game was actually been made now, and instead of just leaving it to be developed with a few bugs and patches and stuff and fixing things and delaying the game again, because at that point, if it's so bad that it can't even run on current gen platforms, then you could just always delay the game again. It's not like people would be surprised if you did that. But they knew, the point is, if you haven't kept up with Cyberpunk, or you guys mainly are here for Spider-Man stuff and aren't aware of the situation with that game, the point is, CD Projekt Red, who are the developers of it, were fully aware that the game was not running as properly as it could have on current gen, and instead of delaying the game or letting people be aware that it might not be as operational, they first off, A, still released it knowing that, but B, when they put out reviews for the game, which is the biggest thing here, is that they were aware that the game wasn't as well received on current-gen consoles compared to PC, which is the main platform that they showcase gameplay of it on. And they actually confirmed, you know, it was said to reviewers who had a copy of the game that they could not show footage of their own gameplay. They could only show what you could call B-roll footage from CD Projekt Red themselves, meaning that they allowed the reviewers to only use footage in their reviews of the footage that they deemed accessible or just like available for the game itself. Like, this is what you should show for our game, and this is the only thing that you can show for your review. You can't show your own gameplay running on PC because there weren't even review codes given to the game on PC. It was only, or sorry, on console, it was only on PC. The review codes were only given for the game on PC, not on current-gen consoles or even next-gen consoles, and because of that, they promoted pretty much a false product. Or what I should say, they didn't market the entirety of what the product is. So when people actually saw the footage of the reviews online, they thought, oh, it's going to look great on my PS4 Pro, or my Xbox One, my Xbox One X, or my Series X, or my PS5. It's going to be fantastic. And for some people, that is the case, who aren't dealing with massive bugs and glitches. They're probably having a great time. And of course, PC runs the best for everything. But it's actually been a huge disaster in terms of public reception for current-gen consoles. They've actually lost stock for the company's value with investors at CD Projekt Red. And alongside of that, the user scores on Metacritic and other gaming websites from, you know, normal consumers like us, not like reviewing sites like IGN or anything like that, have gone to literally, I think the lowest number I've seen is like a 2.9 for Cyberpunk, which is like, again, one of the most highly anticipated games of the year, and it's being received terribly on current-gen consoles. So that's why I think it's important for us to talk about this, because the moral of the story is this big, massive gaming company lied about the true value of their product. They lied about the actual outcome of what the game would be on other platforms because they saw that they would make a profit. The pre-orders for the game already outsold, I believe, the sales for The Witcher 3, but also in the sense that it was one of the most highly pre-ordered games ever to hit the market. And because of that, they saw how much value and profit they were going to make from the game based on the current status of pre-orders and how much people were investing time and effort to pick up the game. And they said, well, because people are wanting to get the game, we shouldn't delay it again, or we shouldn't tell them like it's not going to run well. Let's just put the game out as is and not let them know that it might not run as much as they're wanting to expect it to be in a proper status for current gen. meaning that the overall outcome of the game in that regard has actually let down the massive consumer base who are wanting to play the game on the main platforms that the majority of users have right now is a PS4 or Xbox One. Most people can't even get their hands on a PS5 or Xbox Series X. So when they thought, oh, Cyberpunk 2077, probably one of the most highly anticipated games I'm looking forward to this year, is going to run fine on the current gen consoles, that's what they were assuming. And then when they received this incredibly buggy mess, they were fully let down. Super let down. So, and they got away with it because they saw that they could make a profit from the game. CD Projekt Red allowed that to happen. So it's very scummy, in my opinion, of a business tactic that they decided to let that happen instead of just saying, you know what, sorry guys, we gotta delay it again for like the 50,000th time. But you know what, like that one quote is from that one game developer, I always forget his name, but he's like, a good game or a delayed game will eventually be good, but a rush game will be bad forever. So in that regard, they've already delayed the game so many times, though I know how frustrating people are. Trust me, even when Marvel's Avengers was delayed, regardless of how bad the game is now, I was still upset. Like, of course, I knew ahead of time the game was most likely going to get delayed because the game wasn't being marketed properly. But it still upset me, like, well, you said 1,000 times you're going to release the game on May 15th, 2020, and then they went back on their promise because the game was a buggy mess. And they still released it as a buggy mess, and that's why the game did not even break even in terms of developer costs or even sales for the game. Even with a massive property like Avengers, the game still did not sell as much as they wanted to. What Franco brought up in the previous video, where that was that quote from Yosuke Matsuda, the main head of Square Enix, saying that this game, Avengers, will outsell Spider-Man PS4 and the Batman Arkham games. And that did not happen because the game was rushed and it was released in a poor state. Same thing with Cyberpunk, even though it now has, outdone pre-order sales and the amount of reception from some fans on PC really enjoy the game and how it's being made and how it looks and runs, which is great. But on current gen consoles, the main user base of what's currently at right now, they're not having it, and a lot of fans are upset. They're leaving bad reviews. They're trying to, ask for refunds of the game. That was one of the, at least consumer-friendly, one of the minuscule consumer-friendly decisions that CD Projekt Red actually did, is that they are allowing people to try and ask for a refund for their copy of Cyberpunk if they think it didn't live up to the standards of a quality product. And just in general, it really didn't pan out for them in the best way because that is where the main market of gamers currently are. Where if you were to release the game, I would say maybe, a couple years in advance of the PS5 Series X life cycle, like, oh, the PS5 and Xbox Series X have been out for 5 years, and then you're going to release it on those platforms, and then it's going to release in a fully next-gen state, so that way it doesn't have to run on what the Xbox One or PS4 will run. But it was initially made for the PS4 and Xbox One, and now even still, in its current state, it can't run properly for the current / last-gen consoles. And they knew this ahead of time, and they still released it anyway, because they had to get money. The investors were wanting to know if the game was going to run well, and the pre-orders were already, massively at the highest peak. So because of that, if they delayed it again, they knew that they would lose money, especially since they already pissed so many fans off when they asked that one whole meme, like that person asked on Twitter saying, hey, I'm wanting to know for sure, is Cyberpunk going to release on this date? And they said, yeah, and then the very next day, they said it's delayed again. So it's like, I don't trust a single word that company says now. I've lost all trust in them and what they're trying to do and persuade their fans with their statements, because they've gone back on almost everything that they've said, and the product itself is kind of in a lackluster state right now for current gen. I'm sure it runs fine on next gen and PC. I'm sure Franco can probably attest to that if he has the game and he can give his perspective. But for me, as a general consumer of the main market of next gen consoles, and I want to get one, and if I might get Cyberpunk, but I probably won't, I would probably only get the game on next gen. I'm not inclined to buy the game right now on a current gen status because of how poorly it shipped and all the bugs and crashes and just unplayable state that the majority of people, this isn't from a minority of people, this is from the general main consumer base on current gen platforms that they can't run the game in a proper state because it just won't work on our current platforms. They said CD Projekt Red went on record saying that it would work fine for current gen. So they've been backtracking and fronting and kind of like trying to save face as much as possible for the game because of how hyped and anticipated it was and how much trust they've garnered for the user base with their past titles like The Witcher 3 and other games that they've made in the past. And everyone's, of course, super hyped for Cyberpunk. But the final outcome of what it was pretty darn lackluster, to say the least. And of course, you guys probably have watched videos of like the memes with like Keanu Reeves, like, I'll probably get demonetized for it, but he's like, with Keanu Reeves talking to like the trailers of him like promoting Cyberpunk. He's like, in 2077, what does it take to make someone a criminal? And then it shows like a brief cuts of like the game glitching out, and he's like, getting like the C word. It's like, oh my god. So they're like memeing it to death. It's like the funniest thing. Or like, in like Cyberpunk, like, he's like, oh. He's trying to say like a line like, why do you come to Night City to find out who you really are? But then like there's a meme like, why do you come? Like Cyberpunk, like, okay, like, oh, it's just like the funniest thing to see them talk about stuff like that. So when they try and meme that, then they show like the glitches of like people T-posing through cars, people are streaking through the streets. There's like I've been retweeting some of the glitches and memes on my Twitter page. There's like a car that flies through the air. People have gone under the map. They've gone above the map. They've like meshed with other characters in the game. There was one which I literally almost died laughing of this one person who's in like a wheelchair in Night City, and your character V is in first person, obviously, and you can control to do whatever you want to attack them or say hi to them or what's going on. And this person who's in a wheelchair, your V, you punch the person who's in the wheelchair, who's supposed to be handicapped, and he literally gets up in a wheelchair and runs away. So it's like,
I saw that.
It's like, okay, I guess the future allows people to just recover from that. But I'm like, and the funny thing too is, this is a game about cybernetic enhancements, right? And then the person he punched in the wheelchair already had cybernetic enhancements on his arms and face. But he didn't figure to add cybernetic enhancements in his legs? Like, come on, bro. So it's like, even that, there shouldn't even be handicapped people in the future if you're giving them, like, what, like the blade arms you guys have seen in, like, the gameplay trailers? Or, like, the wire chip thing that you can use to hack into computers? You could solve all, like, Spider-Man PS4 style with the robot arms. You could solve all, like, handicap, amputee problems for everyone out there. And it's like, they just said, you know what? No, I want sci-fi guns and wire drones and freaking cyber mantis blades coming out of my arms. Like, all right, sure. Makes sense to me, I guess. So it's like, it's the funniest thing. That whole situation for the game is crazy. Moral of the story is, CD Projekt Red lied about the true status of their game. And I think for you guys who may not be as interested in the gaming industry as Franco and I, or who are just kind of like casual gamers who just wait for new releases, I would say do research. The main thing is do research about the true status of a game, and you decide whether or not from a review, not from a trusted source or whatever, just from you personally, you should decide whether or not the game is worth your time and money. Because even like me, I say like Miles Morales PS4 is a Game of the Year contender. It ran fantastically on PS4, but I personally still experienced a few bugs. Like Miles was kind of glitching at one point when he was doing the mission for Gloria at the feast shelter. But it wasn't like anything game-breaking, and there were no crashes like Cyberpunk. It was just like, oh, there were a few little glitches here and there for Miles on PS4, but that's because the game was intended as a PS5 game, and that's the thing. For example, to connect it to Spider-Man, Miles was always promoted as a PS5 game, and that's where it runs the best. Franco can attest to that, and I'm sure you guys can too if you have a PS5. But for me, as a PS4 user, I personally was wondering quite a lot, how will the game run on PS4 compared to PS5? Because we saw screenshots of the PS4, but we never really saw gameplay of it, because it was mainly promoted as one of the core premier launch titles of the PS5, and that's fine, because that's how the game should be marketed, as like the stepping stone into the future for Sony's first-party games, especially for Spider-Man. But for me, I'm like, well, I'm going to be buying Miles on PS4 and PS5, but I'm having to play Miles right now first on PS4 because I don't own a PS5. But I was still wondering, how is this game going to look on PS4 compared to PS5? Well, is it going to be like a buggy, broken mess, or is it still going to be just as good? And shockingly, this game still looks and runs incredible on a PS4 Pro. I'm actually astounded to see how good this game runs on current-gen consoles as of right now for the main PS4 user base. And it looks and runs even better on PS5. But that's the thing, is that it was always marketed to run well on both games, and Insomniac showed footage and screenshots to back it up. The difference is, for Cyberpunk, it was never shown, never once shown at all on current-gen consoles for the Xbox Series X or PS5, or also the PS4 and Xbox One, because they always used like really controlled marketing B-roll footage to like show the best assets of the game, the most scripted set pieces. Really, you know, even like the main trailers were always CGI. Of like Keanu Reeves and like the V cutscenes and stuff. That was almost always CG stuff, and they always say this is in-engine footage. Like, no way. Like the first trailer that we got of Cyberpunk at E3 2018 or 2019, I think, where they like had that music and like the showcase of like the open world, like the aesthetic of Night City. That was never shown to be on par with the current visuals that it has now. Like, that was obviously all CG. There was no way that is in-engine, because if it was, the game would look and run great, but it doesn't, because they, for whatever reason, had developer issues. I think one of the reasons why is because they were being a bit too ambitious with the game as a whole. They were trying to do like an RPG mixed with a first-person shooter, mixed with an open world, mixed with you know, like sci-fi elements, mixed with some combat and FPS style gameplay loops, customization. Like, so much is going into the game. A lot for the overall aesthetic and visual quality that Night City was trying to portray for Cyberpunk with the trailers. But that was also because they backed it up with PC footage for the best possible visual implementation of the game for next gen, you know, with the NVIDIA graphics card and all that, boosting it with the developer, you know, the whatever assets CD Projekt Red was using on PC versus console. But now, people who own the console version have been massively let down by the product, and in a way, almost feel betrayed and or robbed by the final product. Like, this isn't the game that I've been fawning over for the last, you know, 2, 3, how many years. This isn't the game that I was promised, with a full next-gen experience with Night City and all these amazing details for the game. It was a letdown. It is a letdown for current-gen consoles, and just seeing the status of it is what CD Projekt Red is dealing with the ramifications of. They're losing stock with their investors, they're losing trust with us as the consumers, and they're losing review scores with online critics. And the game sold well. Like, again, as a comparison, Marvel's Avengers did not break even. They did not make their money back for that game because of how poor the game was. It's a different thing with CD Projekt Red, because they did make their money back, but people might start refunding the game. And they made their money back on the first day, by the way, just as a reminder. They made their money back for Cyberpunk on the first day of its release with all the pre-orders that they accumulated. But now the factor is, the general consumers feel almost like they got, you know, swindled or misled for what the true product was. And my reaction was the exact same with Marvel's Avengers. Like, oh, you guys delayed the game to make it better, but in reality you just kind of made things worse. And even so, they also admitted, by the way, for Avengers, that they released it with over 1,000+ bugs that they put into the, or they couldn't patch for the game. And that's why the game has so little users playing it right now for a live service game. And now CD Projekt Red is stating that they're going to be patching Cyberpunk in the next few months, with January, February, and maybe March, to fix the current status of it for current gen. But the difference is, Cyberpunk isn't a live service game. It's just supposed to be a standard single-player open-world experience like The Witcher, or, you know, any other type of game that's in that genre. But they didn't really hold true to the final essence of the product of the game, to what they want it to be. And it's kind of sad to see the status of how it is now being received from so many people online. And I think the lesson to take away from this is that in the future, you should, A, if you're interested in a game, do your research, but B, trust yourself and only yourself when making said judgment. Like, you could listen to me or any other online critic about what you, like a game or a movie or whatever we end up reviewing, but the main person who can decide whether or not you'll like a product or think that's a smart decision to buy it is you. And I think that should be taken into consideration whenever they decide to update Cyberpunk or whatever they decide to patch in the future for the game, because even if they add DLC, some people may not even buy the DLC because they know that it might be glitchy or that might not live up to the standards that they're looking for in a AAA open-world action-adventure game, or whatever game that the genre decides to be. It has to live up to the qualities that they're trying to promote it as, is the thing. And that is, all I'm saying is there's a lot to learn from both the status of Cyberpunk and Marvel's Avengers, in that regard of how the developers actually go about making these games. But for now, it's just kind of odd to see how they actually have portrayed the game in such a weird way, but also in the sense that now they're facing the backlash of their actions that they caused for themselves for the game. And in a way, like, I don't feel bad for them because they did it on purpose. They knew exactly what they were doing, and yet they still made money anyway. So it's not like, oh my god, I feel so bad for the developers, because they made their money back, and they also knew what they were doing way ahead of time. So, you know, I'm not really too keen on that business type, the business practice of what CD Projekt Red has actually done and or doing now currently. But I do hope that for the fans out there of Cyberpunk who are wanting a game, or a good game from them, or like want Cyberpunk to be a good game, you would hope that in the future they could go and adjust a few things and maybe patch it in the future and make all the best improvements to get the best possible experience that you could muster from a game that's as anticipated and as exciting as, you know, what do you call it, just Cyberpunk, as well. Like, if they show, like, for example, to connect it to you guys in the Spider-Man realm to make it make more sense, or like understand that realm. If Spider-Man 2 comes out in the future, says it's a PS5 exclusive only for next gen, and they don't deliver on a full next gen performance with the PS5, or something goes wrong and the game isn't operational at all on the PS5 when it was strictly marketed as a PS5 game, then that's a problem. Whereas, like, oh, I feel bad for Insomniac because they couldn't make it work. Like, no, I will critique them heavily if they don't make it work, if they say, oh, it's only on PS5 and nothing else, and that's it. It's going to be only on PS5, day one, in 2022, like the first day it comes out, only on one console, nothing else. And if it can't even run properly on that console, then we have a problem, which is exactly what's happening with Cyberpunk. They said, CD Projekt Red stated that with they first had the assets to run the game fully on the current gen platforms, and that it looked great. It's going to look the best on PC. What the I forget what his name is, who's like one of the heads at CD Projekt Red, but he was basically stated in one of these like interviews and stuff, saying that yeah, the game will run fine on PS4 and Series Xbox One. But the PC will be the best version of the game, but it will still run really well on the current-gen consoles. And because of that statement from company leaders, and it didn't follow through, then we have a problem. And that also leads to mistrust amongst the consumer base and the users who are purchasing the game. So it is what it is. It's a very strange situation. I feel bad for you guys who, if you do have a PS4 or Xbox One, you decide to purchase Cyberpunk and you didn't get the product that you were expecting. Hopefully it can be adjusted in the future, and maybe there's a chance for it to be improved down the line with the patches they have in store. But for right now, I'm personally not a fan of PC games or first-person games, so I'm not inclined to buy the best version of Cyberpunk on PC, and I don't really like how the game is just artistically structured in that regard. Like, it looks cool, like you can customize your character and all that, but what's the point? And this is always the problem with like all first-person games. What's the point of like decking out your character, making the best possible build, if you can't even look at your character? You know, you can obviously see V in like cutscenes, and when he's looking at the mirror, and during driving sequences, you can drive in third person, so you can see the front of him or back of him if you're on a bike or a car. But you're watching the game from his perspective. So why would you want to spend all that time customizing him to make him look like you or whatever when you can't even see him on screen, you know, or her, or whatever you decide to choose. That's just one flaw I have with like all first-person games. I always find customization in first-person games pretty dumb and like cross, you know, like redundant or like not as intuitive as you would want it to be. But it is what it is. I'm hoping the best possible situation for you guys who like the game or wanting the game to be good. But right now, they kind of put themselves between a rock and a hard place by their own actions, so I can't really feel bad for them in that sense. And I know I've said so much, but Franco, what are your thoughts?
Yeah.
Did you buy Cyberpunk? What did you get the game on next gen, or like are you playing the backwards compatible version of the game on next gen, or like did you decide to purchase it, or what's going on with you on that front?
Yeah, so I bought the game and I'm playing it via the backwards compatibility on the PS5, and so it actually runs pretty smoothly. Like, it runs at 60 FPS, but I have encountered all, like, you know, like all the bugs and the glitches. My game's been crashing sometimes, you know, if it's on for too long. Like, I've noticed, like, some, like, you know, textures, like, fail to load at times, and also, like, sometimes the cars would sink into the ground.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That's not good.
Yeah. But, like, so far, like, I'm having a fun time with it. Like, I like first-person shooters and RPGs, so it's kind of my thing. And I was always hyped for this game, probably since E3 of last year, when they finally showed off more gameplay. Like, I was
nice.
like, yeah, cool, like, this looks awesome, yeah. But then, like, when they showed off gameplay at last year's E3, like, that was when I was, like, really, like, hooked onto it. And, yeah, no, I've honestly been having a fun time. I just, you know, I hope that CD Projekt Red can turn this around with all the patches that are coming out in the next couple months. But so far, you know, if you want to buy it for yourself, I say go for it. But I highly recommend, you know, just maybe wait till the next gen versions when it's like fully, like, you know, much more polished than the current gen, well, the previous gen versions of the game on PS4 and Xbox One.
Right. No, I totally agree, because there is a lot of improvement that can be done down the line. Like, same thing with Avengers. Like, we obviously wish the game was a lot better, but once they include new characters and other stuff, it might have a chance to redeem itself for what they put themselves in. And it's like, well, they added Kate Bishop, so that's, I guess, a step in the right direction. But it's more the same repetitive gameplay stuff in the game. So then that's why people stopped playing, because they weren't a fan of how the game was structured for the gameplay aesthetic and the live service loot shoot grind elements for Avengers. And for CD Projekt Red Cyberpunk, they're like, well, I want a good solid story and an open world experience with first person gameplay that runs well and has immersive elements for the world building and stuff. And some elements worked a lot for players, others did not, which is kind of a shock for a studio as massive as CD Projekt Red on what they're known for with their immersive worlds. And some people say Night City is one of the best open world areas I've ever explored in my lifetime, and it's so immersive and it's fantastic and you've never seen anything like it. On the other hand, there's people who say the exact opposite. They're like, it's completely barren, there's nothing unique about it, the NPCs do nothing, they're non-reactive to everything, it feels dead, lifeless, there's nothing intuitive about it at all, it's like the same exact open world game you've seen 1,000 times already. So it's like, wow, you know, I don't know who to believe, because I only would trust myself. And that, for me, though, at least I see now that the status of the game is not at least well to run or play on current gen hardware. So me, I will wait until they add the patches. If I decide to even buy it, I probably won't, but if I do decide to buy it, I would wait until they add the patches to the game for backwards compatible features, or just release the fully next gen version on PS5 and Xbox Series X down the line. But yeah, that's pretty massive for them to drop the ball this hard for so many people. And hopefully they can fix it down the line. I don't know if they'll be able to recuperate from the reception that they've got from people, because now they've lost trust amongst some consumers. Once they improve it, maybe, but for now it's like they just put themselves in like a really bad spot. So I don't know if they'll be able to fix it, but we shall see. Now on the side news, maybe Franco, you can take over a bit. I'm going to check my phone really quick because I saw a message from someone. They confirmed, or at least there's a rumor of confirmation, and you guys in the chat can let me know your thoughts too. More news about Spider-Man 3. Crazy enough, the movie that never stops involving cast members with this freaking crew of people and actors and characters, that now, apparently alongside Toby, the Maguire attire, Andrew Garfield, as well as Emma Stone and possibly Kristen Dunst and Tom Holland and Doctor Strange and even Charlie Cox as Daredevil, all these freaking characters, now and Alfred Molina is confirmed and Jamie Foxx is confirmed to reprise their roles as these villains. Now apparently, about like what,
you want me to say
in
it?
the time of the streaming, like 40 plus minutes ago, they announced,
you want me to say it?
they announced freaking, I'm a scientist myself, Willem Dafoe and Thomas Hayden Church, Sandman, Green Goblin, Sandman, are coming back in Spider-Man 3 as their respective characters, as Norman Osborn / Green Goblin and Sandman / Flint Marko. I'm freaking, like, I'm almost done with this movie, and it's not even out yet, and I'm just like, did we learn nothing from Spider-Man 3 or The Amazing Spider-Man 2, where if you include too much in the game, you're going to have a problem with how it's done? I'm sorry, I'm not even looking at my phone, because I was like, I was on that tangent. But, what is happening for you, Franco? What do you think about it?
I mean, I would love to see, Willem Dafoe's Goblin, because I think that is honestly one of the best comic book villains castings ever. Like, Willem Dafoe, does such a phenomenal job as Green Goblin. Now, I wonder if he'll use the same suit as in the first Tobey Maguire movie, or maybe they'll use the prototype mask that they almost went with the film, or maybe his, Halloween costume look that he would have in the comics. And then with Thomas Hayden Church's Sandman, and then with Sandman, Thomas Hayden Church, I really loved him. I really loved his character arc in the film. That is probably one of my favorite parts about Spider-Man 3 is the journey that he went on, and he's just trying to save his daughter from dying, and that's why he's been trying to grab money for just to try to cure his daughter from his disease, and killing Uncle Ben just to help his daughter. It really is well done. Yeah. So I'm very excited. I know a lot of people are saying, why are they having so many people? Have they not, Sony has not learned from Spider-Man 3 and Amazing Spider-Man 2 when you put too much in one film? Yeah, I understand that point, but still, if done right, this could probably be, a very good film, providing that, Tom is the main focus since it's his third film. And that not all of these fan favorite characters and actors coming back just to overshadow him in his third film. I just hope they can kind of keep it consistent with all the characters in the film and just make it a fun, enjoyable experience for everybody. But overall, my overall thoughts, I'm excited and I can't wait to see where it goes.
I totally agree. And you guys, just in the chat, can you guys confirm? You can hear Franco, right? I think we solved the audio issues from the previous streams, but I think Franco is able to be heard with his microphone, because I think we managed to adjust that previously. But I totally agree in that, low-key, Thomas Hayden Church was the best part about Spider-Man 3. His Sandman was fantastic. The writing that Sam Raimi input for him was really, really on par and really good for his character, trying to make him more relatable in that sense. He had a daughter. Good, you guys can hear Franco? Excellent. Thank you, guys.
Perfect.
That's great news. He had really good human motivations and connections to making him feel more like a person, and not just some random foe that Spider-Man had to take out for the film to add runtime. In that regard, that was actually Venom. Venom was the symbiote felt not as utilized as properly as it could have been in some elements of the movie, especially with Venom just coming at the last act of the film in a very rushed way. But Sandman and Flint Marko, Thomas Hayden Church did such a good job with his role of the character, his interpretation of Sandman, because of Sam Raimi's direction and the writing that was inputted for his character. That's the thing, is gotta keep in mind, that was Sam Raimi's Sandman. That was Sam Raimi's Venom, even though he was pretty much forced to put Venom in the movie. He's also gone on record, by the way, Sam Raimi saying he's not a really big fan of Venom as a character, where I'm the exact opposite. I love everything about Venom, and I think he is the full-on arch nemesis of Spider-Man. People say Green Goblin or Doc Ock. For me, I still say Venom. Depending on certain iterations of him, but to the core, what the symbiote does and represents for Peter is a lot in how that attaches to Eddie Brock specifically as Venom, not Flash Thompson as Venom, or Matt Gargan, or anyone else. Just that it has a lot of possible potential to tell some dark and mature stories for, like, I think Franco and I brought this up, and my buddy Ronnie as well on News to Astonish, saying that Back in Black is one of the best Spider-Man symbiote stories out there. Oh my god, the cat was out of the bag. Whoa, what's happening? Oh no, okay, wow. Glitching right through, that's a new superpower that the cat has, that's fantastic. But, yeah, you know, I think, like, Back in Black and the Ultimate series, you know, Ultimate Comics, where they introduced the black suit and the symbiote for Peter, and Eddie Brock's connection to Peter in that comic series and the game. I would just say the Ultimate Spider-Man game is like the best representation of the Ultimate Comics for Peter Parker's run. I still, like, when people say, who do you hear when you read Spider-Man comics? For me, it's like, now it's Yuri Lowenthal for, like, adult Spider-Man. For me, whenever I hear, or whenever I read, like, a teenage Peter Parker story, I still envision, or at least imagine, Sean Marquette as Peter Parker from the Ultimate Spider-Man game, because it's so freaking good. Like, it's honestly fantastic. His performance in that game is so well-rounded and executed to perfection for the story. But for this, you know, with Spider-Man 3, what the topic is we don't know for sure if it means that if Thomas Hayden Church and Willem Dafoe are coming back for their roles, if they're being the same exact characters from the Raimi movies or different versions, which it would make no sense for Willem Dafoe because he died in Spider-Man 1. That's like the whole crux of the final ending of the movie. And with Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man 3, it's like, you killed my father, Peter. You know, I'm done trying to convince you. Gonna cry, Goblin Jr.? So it's like, you know, that's the whole thing. So it would make no sense for Willem Dafoe to come back as the Raimi version of, that's such a cool shot of Miles, of the Raimi version of Norman Osborn, as well as Thomas Hayden Church's Sandman, because he had an arc. He didn't die in Spider-Man 3, but he had a really great arc of, like, it was retcon pretty much that instead of Dennis Carradine being the killer of Uncle Ben in the Raimi movies, you know, like, you know, give me the bag, or you put the money in the bag, you know, thanks, in the elevator, that guy was Dennis Carradine, which we all thought shot Uncle Ben. The main thing in Spider-Man 3 is that, oh, psych, it was never him. It was, weirdly enough, it was Sandman. It was Flint Marko who was the real killer, which was a super weird twist in that movie. But for the reason of why they did it is because it got a lot of cool connection and you know, closure for Peter. Weird, no audio coming out of Miles' mouth either in that scene. That was strange. More glitches, you see, dealing with these glitches. Gotta patch those glitches. But, even Spider-Man can't get away from bugs. It's okay, though. No, but for Spider-Man 3, he had an arc. You know, Sandman had a really great narrative arc, and so did Peter with the black suit being enraged, and that's why the whole subway fight took place, because he let the anger consume him with the black suit, which it fed off of. And instead, he was in the red suit, of course, by the end of Spider-Man 3, and he says, you know, after he tells Peter, like, I didn't want this, you know, this was never my life, I didn't mean for this to happen. He's like, you had a choice when you killed my uncle, like, I was, you know, my daughter's sick, you know, like, and he tells him his background, like, I have a sick daughter, I was desperate, I didn't mean to shoot him, it was an accident, which apparently, like, the gun was in my hand, I pulled it by accident and shot Uncle Ben, but he felt the guilt of his actions, and he felt guilty for letting that happen to you know, Peter, after seeing him unmasked, like, he's Spider-Man, so he's like, I'm not asking you for you to forgive me, I'm just asking you to understand. And he's, at the very end, he has that amazing growth where, I forgive you, which is why I don't really hate Spider-Man 3. I think there's a lot of underrated elements of it. It definitely is one of the weaker Spider-Man movies, but there's a really great message by the end of that film that really hits hard for audience members, and Peter as well, and of course Harry dying, which was so sad to see. But if they bring, well, my point is, if they bring that Sandman back, it would make no sense whatsoever, and in fact would actually piss me off, because there's no reason for them to do that. And they would pretty much undo what Spider-Man 3 did if they had the balls to do that, which I really hope they don't. I just hope that they, which again, it makes no sense. Like, okay, like, they got, and this is what I think is happening. They got J.K. Simmons back as J. Jonah Jameson in, you know, what do you call it? Far From Home. They got him back as J. Jonah Jameson from Far From Home because that's the definitive actor to play that role. And the same thing with Alfred Molina, even though I'm, you know, hot take, I prefer William Sawyers as Doc Ock from Spider-Man PS4 over Alfred Molina. They're both great, don't get me wrong, they're fantastic. I just think the PS4 version is slightly better in terms of the story connection that he has with Peter. With that said, I think there is very odd choices going on right now with them getting these actors back. Let's get Willem Dafoe back. Let's get Thomas Hayden Church back. Let's get Alfred Molina back. Let's get Jamie Foxx back. Let's get Andrew back. Let's get Toby back. Like, what are we doing? What is this movie, and can I not see it? Concerned. Like, I'm very, like Franco, like, I'm honestly, like, scared to see what the result of this movie will be. It's like, it's very strange. But I know, like, you know, because, of course, Spider-Verse did so well and it resonated so much with audiences. But at the same time, that was because they had the liberty of it being animated, so they were able to do a lot more crazy stuff, and Miles was a more unknown character in comparison to Peter. You know, that was the main audience's first mainstream association with Miles Morales was through the Into the Spider-Verse movie. And when they did that, they kind of had a weird you know, thing where it's like, well, now obviously we see, and of course, you know, they said Insomniac did their own thing while Spider-Verse was in production, but there's a lot of similarities you can draw between Miles and his portrayal here in his own game versus his portrayal in Into the Spider-Verse, because that's the main version of Miles that a lot of people see currently as the definitive version of Miles Morales. So the same thing, oh, a lot of people see Tobey Maguire is the definitive version of Spider-Man, or it's Andrew, or it's Tom Holland, so you don't know who's who, but when they say, let's bring them all back, you know, Smash Bros. Style, they're all back, everyone's here, then you kind of get, like, a lot of mixed messages at that time, like, are we really doing what's best for the story, or are we just doing this for fan service? So it's like, oh, if you casted, which I do see actually this being like some random fan cast, but it's still kind of cool in a very funny way of, what's his name? The actor who plays Dwight? Rainn Wilson. Rainn Wilson to play Dr. Octopus in the MCU instead of Alfred Molina or whatever. That'd be a cool choice. And, you know, that is what I'm wanting for, is new, unique stories with different interpretations of these characters that we haven't seen before. So that's why, like, when they got the Lizard and Electro and Green Goblin in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, well, the Lizard was in The Amazing Spider-Man 1, but let's use The Amazing Spider-Man 2 as an example. So, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 also had Harry Osborn and Norman Osborn, if you guys remember that, in the game. The movie, sorry. They had both Harry and Norman in the movie of The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The whole story was that Harry Osborn was sick, just like he is in Spider-Man PS4, and Norman was dying. And that story had a very interesting differentiation from how it was in the Raimi movies, and that's why they didn't get Willem Dafoe back or James Franco back for the role. They instead got completely different people with Dane DeHaan, who I actually love as an actor. I think he was a great choice for Harry. It's just that he got a really bad script. And Chris Cooper, which is like the coolest choice ever for Norman Osborn, and they completely ruined it with how they incorporated him in the film as Norman Osborn, because they're different versions of the character. That's not the same version that we saw in the Sam Raimi movies. Just like, you know, right here in Spider-Man PS4, Otto Octavius is not played by Alfred Molina. It's played by William Sawyers. It's a completely new and different version of the characters from the films, or the comics, or the TV shows, or whatever. So it's very odd that they're doing that as like, well, what would fans love for sure? Oh, well, let's get Alfred back, let's get Jamie back, let's get Andrew and Toby back. But for me, it's like, I want to see Tom's story. You know, there was no inclination that Doctor Strange was going to be appearing in Spider-Man 3 from Far From Home. You know, the world knows he's Spider-Man, and that was it. Where at least Civil War and Homecoming kind of teased where the future was going with him. Like, oh, Aunt May knows he's Spider-Man at the end of Homecoming, so they might tease that a bit more. Or, you know, Civil War, they teased like the Iron Man stuff with Peter, so that was going to be the setup for Homecoming, which it was. And it's like, what they're doing now, it makes no sense, and it very much confuses me a lot with the strategy they're going for with, you know, Toby and what's happening, and Andrew and Willem and Jamie and Thomas Hayden Church. Like, what the hell, dude? Like, I'm very concerned with what this movie is. It just feels like one giant fever dream that I can't wake up from, and I very much hope that it can, like, live up to people's expectations if they're wanting it to be good, or if they're hoping for something really, really cool and like, oh, it's going to be live-action Spider-Verse, but like awesome. And then they just kind of like fail to deliver on that premise, then that's going to be a pretty massive downfall for the movie. But for me, I'm like, I gotta see it to believe it. There's all these rumors and casting announcements. It's like even the announcement of Alfred Molina and Jamie Foxx, which are confirmed. Out of all those are the ones that I know for sure are confirmed. There's like announcements like, oh, Toby's in talks to do that. He's not officially confirmed yet, but he's most likely going to be coming back because he was seen at like a costume set dress rehearsal thing for a movie. It wasn't confirmed which movie, but it's obviously rumored and hinted at to be Spider-Man 3. But for me, I'm so skeptical and confused right now with what this movie is going to be that I'm waiting for literally an official trailer or poster with their names and/or faces popping up in the announcement. Like, oh, Spider-Man 3 featuring Tom Holland, Tobey Maguire, Andrew Garfield, and all the other actors. They're all back, you know. Freaking like they're gonna probably have like a stupid tagline like "There's safety in numbers" or like whatever. And then they have like 3 Spider-Men. Spider-Man 3 Into the Homeverse. Like, I'm getting sick thinking about it. Like, I'm sorry, but I'm like, I can't stand it. If that's the direction they go, again, I'm gonna be like super let down. Like, oh, we just did this as a cash grab because we know that that's what fans want. But did you do it in the service of the story or actually because it was a good choice? Which is why I'm not a fan of the, you know, again, to bring it back to the Ben Jordan face challenge failed. I died. What happened? That's crazy. How dare he? But no, like to bring it back to like also compare it to like Ben Jordan, for example. Like they say, oh, it's the best possible choice for us to use Ben Jordan going forward with our Spider-Man games because we feel like he resonates the most with Yuri Lowenthal's performance to give you true next-gen acting with his model as Peter Parker compared to John Bubniak. I'm like, well, to their benefit, we've only seen Ben in a fraction of Miles Morales, and then he was built from the ground up again with the remaster, but the remaster was mainly, or the Spider-Man PS4, I should say, was mainly tailored to John Bubniak's character model, which is why it looks much better in certain scenes compared to Ben Jordan, which is why I'm going to have to see how he looks in the official sequel once that comes out in like 2 years from now. Like, oh, in the official sequel, Ben Jordan has his character model fully revamped and fully polished. It looks great. It looks fantastic. There's going to be some really emotional moments with Peter in the black suit and Miles. And when that happens, we're going to give you some never-before-seen Peter Parker performances thanks to Yuri Lowenthal's acting as well as Ben Jordan's model, elevating that further. So that's where it kind of gets a little bit hectic and torn in that regard. But for this movie, I'm just like, holy smokes, there's so much going on, I don't know what to think. Willard, does Evan interact with the chat at all? Yes, I do. I'm just terrible at reading it, so you can totally dislike the video if I do not answer the chat. That's understandable. But you can give me that L if needed. But I try and answer as many questions as possible. So I've been ranting on forever. Franco and I have given our 2 cents of Cyberpunk, Miles Morales, Spider-Man 3, and the Marvel shows. But for you guys, what are your thoughts for Spider-Man 3? Did you see the news for the casting announcement of Willem Dafoe and Thomas Hayden Church returning as Sandman and Green Goblin? Or are you hesitant like me? Or are you like hyped or not? Or like I would love to hear your input on the matter. I think also we've worn the suit enough. We've been wearing the suit for almost an hour, so we'll switch out of it. I might stream for another 30 minutes, guys. I may have to get off soon, but it's been fun. Still, always a pleasure to have you guys in the chat and just hang out with me. I did do what you call it. I've done the side missions first because we're gonna get into the main oh my god, I can't even think. We're going to get into the main final battle, pretty much, of the game once we go to the next story mission. And then once that happens with the Tinker Tailor, Spider Soldier, Spider Spy, whatever it is, then it'll pretty much go right into like the final battle and like the final mission pretty much of the game. So right now I'm doing the side stuff, cleaning up the city. We're now gonna go to the bases. We're going to go to the Roxxon and Underground bases, take them out, just do some combat stuff. So while we're doing that, since we're not really focusing on any of the main story stuff right now we'll wear the Uptown Pride one. Why not? I will love to answer your questions for Spider-Man or what's going on or what do you guys think? I post my thoughts on this is coming from Willard. I post my thoughts on Reddit about Marvel Spider-Man 2 because people keep saying that they want multiplayer. I was hoping to get your thoughts. Very interesting. So in that regard, I'm assuming you mean multiplayer in the sense that we could get 2-player co-op and not like Marvel's Avengers style multiplayer, because that would be a big issue for me if they ended up doing that. For this, I think 2-player co-op could work really well. That would also be a big differentiating factor from the other 2 games. You know, Spider-Man PS4 and Miles Morales don't have multiplayer elements, so if they did that to try and change things up a lot, then that would be like, oh, what does Spider-Man 2 have that is different from the first game? Oh, it has the black suit, it has new villains, and multiplayer. 2-player co-op with Miles and Peter. I would love to see that. I just hope that, again, it's in service of the story. Like, don't let the co-op element take away from the single-player element. You know, that was the problem with Marvel's Avengers. They tried to sell it as this big, major first, you know, AAA Avengers game with a great single-player campaign and amazing story, and it's so great to the characters, when in reality that's not the case at all, and they kind of did a disservice to the Avengers cast and instead just focused more on the Destiny/Anthem elements of the game structure when it came to the endgame stuff, meaning like not Avengers endgame, but like what do you do after the story? Whereas Miles, you can swing around the city, you can fight the underground and enemies in the streets, you can explore with the traversal and do combat missions and stealth and stuff, and it's really fun and different in terms of how you can mix and match your combat. For Avengers, you literally just grind for gear and beat up robots 24/7. And now even with Kate Bishop, that's the exact same thing. So I think a co-op element, which of course the main thing people are wanting to know is if we'll be able to swing around side by side with Peter and Miles, free roaming the city in an open world setting with 2-player co-op, live multiplayer, not live service multiplayer, but like couch co-op or online multiplayer, playing these games together with your friends. That would be insane. I think that would be a very cool move. And again, we kind of discussed this in a previous stream or another video where Brian Intihar and Ted Price, who of course are from Insomniac, pretty much already did a presentation at this gaming convention called DICE. They were there talking about specifically how to make co-op games fun. And because Sunset Overdrive co-op mode, I forget the name of it, but Sunset Overdrive, that game, does have a co-op mode in that title. But it's not specifically a co-op centric game, but there is a co-op element to it. So they were talking about co-op for some reason when their most recent game that they released was Spider-Man. So that already hints towards me that they're definitely planning to expand the Marvel Spider-Man formula with their next game, with the sequel, and I think the best way to do that, if they want to go in that route, is make it a 2-player co-op centric Spider-Man title with Miles and Peter at the helm, and have it seamlessly intertwined with a single-player and co-op experience that you and your friend could enjoy. That would be insane. That would be a massive, massive game changer, and I definitely think I can see them doing that in the future whenever that game is announced. Like, imagine the sequel's announced, you have Peter and Miles, they're both back, Peter's in the black suit, but then they show like a quick snip of gameplay, and it shows of them both together, side-by-side co-op. That would be the coolest thing. I just hope that they understand like where their strong suits are. The strong suit is their single-player core, story-driven elements with a sweet open world to explore and fun combat to mess around with. But if they, prioritize the co-op or whatever before that, then there's going to be a problem, in my opinion. Then we're going to have some issues with the game and how it's structured and how it's laid out, versus how Spider-Man PS4 and Miles Morales have been made. With the singular single-player structure. So if they do a disservice to that with the story or whatever they decide to do, then I'm going to be concerned. For example, I don't think Marvel Spider-Man 2 is not going to be live service. Like Marvel's Avengers is a live service game. That is the biggest flaw of it, is because they heavily rely on the live service elements to add in new content and stuff like that for the title. For this, though, their main focus is the single-player element with open-world traversal and core characters to dive into with an interesting story. Now, Gotham Knights is going to be interesting in that perspective, because how is that going to work with the same exact thing that they're doing? They're also doing that in the sense of it's not live service. It's, strangely enough, even though there's 4 Gotham Knights, there's Red Hood, Nightwing, Batgirl, and Robin, that game is also confirmed to only be 2-player co-op. that game is actually not a 4-player co-op game. It's actually 2-player co-op only. I think the game's glitching because Miles isn't speaking with his dialogue, but what I'm trying to say is that there's a lot of potential. There's certainly a lot of potential here to discover for Spider-Man and a co-op element and how that could factor in with the symbiote and Peter gameplay mixed in with all this other stuff. And if they do it right, then they're going to have a lot of cool stuff to dive into with the gameplay possibilities. Like, oh yeah, Franco and I are going to hop in. Franco's going to spend time as Peter. I'm going to spend time as Miles. We're going to swing around the city, solve crimes by ourselves, and then team up together to take out a massive boss in the middle of the game. And that'll be it. I switched suits because I think that helps with the audio, unless, let's see. He should go back. There he goes. There he goes. For some reason, he wasn't speaking in the Uptown Pride suit. That was strange. But I believe Willard asked that question. That was a fantastic question. And I'm very much pro to the choice if they do make it a co-op game. I just want them to focus more on the single-player stuff if they do decide co-op. Like, okay, cool, you got co-op, but still stay true to the single-player story-driven factors of Spider-Man. And that would be fantastic. Let's see, what's happening here? Oh, no, wait. Yes? Venom Punch. Isn't it going? I guess not. There it goes. Weird. But yeah, there's a lot of potential for the sequel. And I'm very, very excited to see how that is going to turn out. Probably, again, sadly, 2022 or 2023 is when we most likely will see it. But I think it'll be definitely worth the wait. And will surely not be anything close to like what Cyberpunk is currently at right now. Insomniac is known for quality. They've never really disappointed with a game. I would say other than Sunset Overdrive in some elements, some people think that's an okay game. It has its bright moments, but for the most part, it's pretty fun, especially for an Xbox exclusive. Some of the Ratchet & Clank games are hit or miss. I'm a fan of the majority of them, and Spyro, of course, too. But I grew up with Ratchet & Clank, love Spider-Man PS4, love Miles Morales, so I think there's all the inclination to assume that the sequel is going to be fantastic. And there's a lot to be hyped about for the possibility of what they can do for gameplay. So I Willard, that was a fantastic question, and I think there's a lot to be hyped for going forward in the future. But anyone else? Franco, any thoughts about you? What, if you're still here, what would you want for like a sequel? Or I guess in general, for the sequel for Spider-Man 2, what do you want to see the most? Like symbiote gameplay, or the story, or co-op, or how are you feeling in that regard? I think Franco might have left, boys. Sorry, unless he's muted his mic or something, but it's just us for now. Franco might join in soon. I forget if he left. I apologize, Franco, if you're watching, because I bored you to death with my talking. That's understandable. But we'll get back to him for sure. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be excited for the sequel. Let's see. I missed it. Michael Courtney, hey Evan, what if Spider-Man crossed over with Dragon Ball Z? Man, this is getting intense. Is this Spider-Man 3 casting right now? Goku is gonna be in Spider-Man 3, guys? Holy smokes, I don't even know. This is getting intense. Man, who would have thunk? Goku is the main villain of Spider-Man 3. Holy crap. He's gonna Kamehameha Tom Holland out of his own universe, which will then bring in Toby and Andrew as a consequence. Who would have thunk? Certainly not me. Let's see. Danielle, let's see, no name, do full stealth. I'll take you up on that challenge. I'll do my best. Danielle Anzaldi, how would you develop parkour in the sequel to make it actually matter during gameplay? Fantastic question. Fantastic question. This is what I've actually been discussing a lot, actually, in my videos or just, discussion topics for the game. And even before Miles came out, I did a video going over the top 5 features Miles Morales should have. And one of them is expansive parkour. Incorporate the parkour more into the... What's this guy doing? He's walking up the railing. Incorporate the parkour more into the gameplay in terms of combat as well as traversal. Like, the parkour in Spider-Man PS4 and Miles Morales is, sad to say, bare bones. There are cool things you can do with parkouring over objects and cars, but it's not as fluid as, say, for example, which shockingly enough, if you guys have played it, which I love this game, Watch Dogs 2, Marcus Holloway and his parkour, that's the main protagonist of that game. His parkour, and he doesn't even have superpowers. He's just a hacker with how he can run around San Francisco, which, cool enough, that's, you know, where I live. San Francisco is where the game takes place in Watch Dogs 2. And he runs around like a freaking monkey. Like, he goes, like, up and down, like, pulls and swings and, like, flips over everything. It's insane. There's a lot of maneuverability with Marcus's athletics in Watch Dogs 2, and he does a great job. Some guy just spotted Spider-Man, I think. Even though it said it was safe. That guy just saw his friend get yanked up, and he's not even phased. Interesting. No Name said to do this fully stealth, so I'm doing my best. I think I'm doing pretty good so far, but let's see if we can keep it up. Yeah, no, incorporate, what I want the most is incorporate, A, more seamless parkour into the web swinging, but also, B, make the parkour matter for combat. Maybe, like, mix the parkour somehow with, like, moving over objects, like a vault kick over, like, a box or a crate to launch yourself towards an enemy. You know, flip over enemies more. Try and do, like, some parkour, which we kind of got now with Miles' swing tricks, which are pretty cool, with his, you know, twirling and flipping and, you know, exaggerated swagger. But we need more fluid parkour animations for Spider-Man on the ground and in the air and during combat to mesh well with his web attacks. You know, like the web movement with, for example, I guess the best example of this, which again, one of my favorite Spider-Man games, is Web of Shadows. The web strike is fantastic. The web strike is still the best way to implement Spider-Man's air combat in a video game. It's pretty unrealistic in that game, with like physics-defying movements and stuff. But as far as Spider-Man goes, who already does some crazy stuff in the game, in the comics universe with how he moves and stuff, I think how they execute it with Web of Shadows is easily still one of the best implementations of acrobatics and parkour elements with combat mixed with swinging. Because you can seamlessly go into a swing, press triangle, execute a web strike, press square, you know, do a ground pound on an enemy, and then go back in the air and swing again with elements, and then go into a wall run if you want. Javion Fortanes, Franco, if you're still here, or any one of the mods, if you could get rid of him because he's just spamming the chat, that'd be great. I'm sorry, you guys, if he's disturbing the chat with his repetitive comments. That's not my intention. But, yeah, that would be very cool if they could somehow incorporate more seamless parkour traversal elements into the swinging with ground traversal, you know, hopping over objects or cars or buildings or whatever, and make it like more stylish and do more flips and seamless, and maybe mix up the buttons. Like, don't just hold R2, maybe mix it up somehow. Like the Venom powers, you press and hold L1 and triangle or X to do like the Venom dash or Venom jump during traversal to gain speed or height. But for the parkour, you don't really see the parkour used as much during swinging. Or I should say the mid-air stuff, because you can't really do that in mid-air unless you incorporate it with tricks that add in more fluid movements. No! Aw, see, I would have done... You know what? I'm not going to count that because that fan got in the way, and this guy still has no clue where I am. So, and I think it's the last guy, right? I was so close to getting this guy with no stealth needed. Or no detection needed during stealth. Oh, there's another guy too? Come on. I was so close. That fan got in the way. Oh, there's another guy. Okay, well, I guess I wasn't close at all, but... Man, or at least I feel like I'm close. But holy smokes, that fan got in my way big time. That was upsetting. But I almost got it. I almost got to no detection for the base. But this will go faster once we do this. Dang, this guy won't give up. You know, let's see. Let's get him out of the way with his shield. Nope. Gonna heal up quick. Oh boy. Ground pound these guys. But yeah, there's a lot, I think, with the traversal options. You know, we've already seen what they can do in just the span of 2 years with what Insomniac has done for Miles in comparison to Peter for traversal. So once we see Peter gain the black suit, for example, he's going to be faster and stronger during swinging and combat. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of opportunity for new iterations of traversal or swinging or combat for the black suit. I'm going to be very excited to see how that's going to turn into the final product. Let's see. Get this guy quick. Oof. Right in the wall. Bam. Done. Dang. So I was close. I had to take out, like, what? Was that 8, 9 guys? Oh, I was close to doing no detection and full stealth, but it didn't work out too well. Oh my god, Miles is going to disintegrate. But, yeah, I think there's a lot of cool stuff they can do. I'm very excited for what could happen. But I have total faith in Insomniac that they're going to fully deliver. Like, if you thought, oh my god, Miles' traversal was 10 times better than Peter's, which I do myself, I think that now we're going to see what Peter's true potential is with the sequel once he gets the black suit and other stuff and upgrade his swinging, and he's been Spider-Man for, like, at that point, maybe like 9+ years, maybe even 10 years plus, depending on how far of a time jump they do for the sequel. But we'll see. Someone asked me, do I think Zendaya would be a good choice for Black Cat? No. I think we already got the perfect Black Cat, which they wasted, sadly, for The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Felicity Jones, where she was Felicia Hardy, but they never really fully expanded on her character that much, which kind of sucks. But Zendaya, you know, she's okay in Euphoria. That's like an HBO series, I think. She's all right in that. I don't think she would be... She's not even a good MJ. Which, whatever the character is it Michelle Jones or Mary Jane? Still have no clue. But whatever that version of MJ is, I'm not a fan of her. So I don't, for a character as iconic as Felicia Hardy, I would not really like to see that. And nothing against her, because she's all right as an actress, but for the character of Felicia Hardy, I think Felicity Jones would have done a much better job. Michael Courtney, Evan, Peter's air dodge on the side looks awkward. I'm assuming you mean... in the remaster or like the first game? I need to re-see it again, but yeah, I think you mean like it could be a bit more smoother. In that sense, sure, yeah, I agree. Juan Perez, how do you feel about a Spider-Man and Batman crossover if possible? Well, that would be fantastic, if at all possible. I mean, the closest thing that we could get if they decide to do Marvel versus DC, the fighting game, that'd be great. And if we do, it would need to be Kevin Conroy as... Batman and Yuri Lowenthal as Spider-Man. Take it or leave it. That would have to be the only options possible, because those two are iconic in their roles, and I would love to see them in a game together if they could even manage to do that. I don't think they will, but who knows? Maybe down the line they could do something incredible. Right now we shall just wait and see. I was trying to go through that water tower, but I missed it. Let's see this one. Let's see. Go a bit faster. There you go. Woo! Alright.
Alright, I'm back.
Oh, Franco's back, boys. We were just talking about Spider-Man 2 and gameplay implementations.
Oh, cool.
I think I asked you something, but then I realized you were gone, so I was like talking to myself at that point. But I think I asked you, Franco, or I was going to ask you, I should say, how do you feel, or what is something that you, Franco, would like to see Insomniac input within the sequel for Marvel's Spider-Man, if like at all anything? Like, would it be co-op? Would it be the symbiote gameplay? Would it be a more expansive story? Would it be more features with the PS5, you know, with the DualSense or the 3D audio? Like, what would you want to do to truly have them innovate further for the Marvel Spider-Man formula?
Oh man, that's hard.
I know, right? Like, they were really, the chat was very good with their answers. They're like, they want to see co-op, they want to see parkour, they want to see
okay, I got a few things.
Swinging more, like tricks and stuff.
Yeah, no, for me, obviously parkour, because I felt that was underutilized in the first game, and I hope that they can expand on that. Maybe, you know, since, you know, we saw what with Miles, the air tricks that he could do, I hope that they can also expand on Peter's air tricks and see, you know, show, like, he's been Spider-Man for 8 years, and I hope that they can, like, implement some of, like, the cool, like, poses and, like, maybe, like, some twists and turns of what he can do in the air while he's swinging.
Right.
And, you know, I'd like to have, you know, maybe expand the map, you know, finally have Brooklyn's and Queens fully explorable, not just the main island. And probably also, the last thing, an actual day and nighttime cycle.
That's a great, yeah, like, if they, like, what we've seen in the first game is they're just getting started with the traversal. You know, that was their first outing as Insomniac making, you know, a Spider-Man game on such a high level, and then they polished it a bit more with Miles, but it wasn't a true sequel. You know, this is like a spin-off game with the same elements of you know, Spider-Man PS4 just expanded further. Someone said, Justin Holland, have you seen my paid question? I'm so sorry I did not, because again, I'm terrible at reading the chat. But if you asked a question or you donated to the stream, thank you so much. That's very kind of you, Justin. But you could post it again, and I'll make sure to read it. Did you ask about like the sequel or the Spider-Man 3 or something? But let's see. Really, and Justin, if you can repost your question, I'll be more than happy to answer it. But for right now, ARJ Live, do you think they should remove puzzles? And do you think we should be able to play as Stan Lee in the sequel? I don't know if that would be in poor taste or not. That would be very, very touching. But for now, I think definitely we've already kind of seen that with Miles Morales. They did have a lot of different stuff for puzzles in the sense of they got rid of like the science stuff or whatever for Miles. They had a little bit of that with the Prowler audio missions, but not too intense. You know, that was kind of a little fun environment puzzle to solve. But for like the science, like the science wires and like the Peter gameplay, pretty much that was not in Miles Morales because they had more Spider-Man puzzles to solve with environmental stuff, which I liked more. So I would say do more of that instead of the science stuff. I actually like the Peter Parker gameplay elements with that because it was a break in between the more action-heavy Spider-Man stuff, which is why I also like the Mary Jane missions and the Miles missions. I know some people hate those. I actually think, like, again, that's like the first Spider-Man game we've ever really seen that in, and that was the first factor of the game when it was being promoted, is like, what does it feel like to live in this superhero-filled world as a normal human, you know, as a regular person. So from that perspective, playing as MJ and Miles was really cool and very different that I've never really seen in a Spider-Man game before. But now we have 2 games with Spider-Man, one with Peter, one with Miles, and people love Miles' stuff a whole lot more than Peter's, it seems like. So I definitely think they should expand upon that more going forward in the next game. But let's see. Yeah, who knows what they could do. Did I miss Justin Holland's question again? Franco, did he post something and I missed it? I apologize if I did.
Let's see. No, he hasn't posted it yet.
Okay. Justin, feel free to post if you feel like, buddy, and thank you if you did donate to the stream. That's very kind of you.
If he does put the question in, I'll read it to you.
Thank you so much, bro. Let's see. Xavier Zandival, what if for the sequel they have a Peter boss fight where he has the symbiote on and you have to play as Miles? Yes, so that's the big theory that a lot of fans have right now, is that they are going to do one or two things. One, and I think I discussed this, I was camouflaged, I thought, what's happening? I'm probably going to die. Holy smokes, this is bad. They could either do one or two things. Yeah, wow, Miles just got eradicated. Holy smokes. They could either have you fight Miles as Peter, or you fight Peter as Miles in the black suit with Peter, you know? And that'd be super cool, because then that would be really, really intense to fight a Spider-Man within a Spider-Man game. Now, we did get that already in Edge of Time, but, which, if you guys remember, fun fact, I hate that game, but we did have that in Edge of Time where Miguel fought future Peter at the very end of that game. But he wasn't like, that wasn't like a core Spider-Man fight, you know, that was like a weird, old, super sci-fi, Dan Slott-written Peter, although that one actually was written by the same guy who wrote the 2099 comics, whose name escapes me right now, but I was not a fan of that story at all. Oh, Justin put his question. What was his question?
Let me read it.
It skipped over the screen. I missed it. I'm sorry.
I got it. So he says, how would you rate the duality in the game, and do the underground reminds you of the inner demons?
Does the underground remind me of the inner demons?
Yes. And also,
well, I think they directly say that they had to go up against like the crime bosses and stuff for like the Magia and the inner demons, and then the underground took over. So, and they're also utilizing other bases that were made or that were stored for the inner demons, and you know, Fisk's man and Sable's man also as well, and that's where you see Roxxon and the underground set up shop. So in that regard, both, like, Roxxon is pretty much the equivalent of like Silver Sable's agents, and then the underground is trying to be like more advanced thugs. But I can definitely see the connections between the two for sure. There's a lot of cool stuff to see between Finn's gang and like what their weapons are and how they fight versus the inner demons with the swords and the whips and stuff, because they do have a lot of, you know, really interesting power sets to use from, or for the weapons, I should say, not powers, but like just the equipment that they have in store is very intriguing. versus like what you would see from like the Inner Demons or Fisk's Men or the Rock Song Guards. But yeah, there's a lot of cool connections between the two. Let's see here. Oh my god. So many thugs, so little time. I came here to kick ass and shoot webs, and I'm all out of webs. Let's go. Let's see. Braden Blalock, I'm sorry for pronouncing your name wrong, buddy. Hey, Evan, do you think Carnage could possibly be in Spider-Man 2? So, this is interesting because we have no clue right now how Insomniac is going to go about the symbiote story in Spider-Man PS4's universe. Although I think it's safe to say, at least it looks like for now, they're going more in the ultimate route, where it's not really an alien, it's not like a symbiote Clintar alien, it's instead like a man-made, synthetic, healing life form or whatever, like a healing... It's so hard to describe it from the comics. Like some human-made scientific organism that can self-heal human cells is what it was in Ultimate Spider-Man. Then it was like it's supposed to cure cancer, all diseases, there was like the Parkinson's and all that stuff. So that was like the main thing of like the core of the symbiote's purpose for the Ultimate Comics. It was meant to do good and not be something that feeds off people and children. Unlike again, where the Ultimate Comics, I guess in the Ultimate Spider-Man game, Eddie flat out eats a kid. The first thing that you do as Venom in Ultimate Spider-Man is eat a 10-year-old kid. The coolest freaking thing in that game ever. It's so good. I love it. He's holding the Spider-Man balloon too. Must feed. Oh, yeah. Fantastic. So in this game, they're really hinting towards the fact that Harry is going to be Venom, to answer your question about Carnage. So I think right now, and the whole thing is like Carnage is an offspring of the Venom symbiote. But in the Ultimate Comics, to reference to that again, it was a mix of both. It was like the remaining cells in Peter's body still had traces of the symbiote in it. And then they extracted that with Spider-Man's blood, and I think a little bit of Kurt Connor's blood even, in that story where he made Connor, where he was the Lizard, and then he made Carnage, who then killed Gwen Stacy in that storyline, which was intense as all hell, was not a person. It wasn't Cletus Cassidy as Carnage. It was just a self-aware, sentient life form that was made out of Spider-Man's blood and remnants of the symbiote particles. So, and a little bit of Dr. Connor's blood is the Lizard. And fun fact, and crazy enough, who's in the sequel? Who's right now in the sequel? Who's teased in the sequel? Or who's shown as a post-credit character in Miles? Kurt Connors. So we're getting there even more. So who knows if they actually allow that to connect to the symbiote storyline. Oh, Justin, yeah, you're right. You forgot the duality in game. Do you mean like Miles as Spider-Man or Peter as Spider-Man? Or even like Finn and the Tinkerer? I love that. I think, again, like the best stories are when Peter Parker's world and Spider-Man's worlds collide. And I think that with the story for Miles, I'm more of a fan of the Spider-Man PS4 story than Miles' story, but for what it was and the length that Miles had to work with, I think they did a great job. So I think it was rad. The story is always on point with these games, which Insomniac completely understands Spider-Man to a T. It's fantastic to see them understand the character so heavily and so thoroughly. And whenever we get those moments of Miles out of the suit and we're just playing as Miles and seeing his struggles as himself and what he has to do out of the suit as Spider-Man, but also the same thing as Peter, it's great too. But yeah, to answer both questions of Justin's, the Underground is a very interesting faction of enemies to fight in the game with similarities to the Inner Demons, but more so Miles has a lot of stuff to work with his own game in that as well. You see that little parkour trick right there? That was fully exaggerated swagger. I'm not trying to go to the church either. I want to go away from that, actually, because I don't want to try and start that mission. But so much exaggerated swagger with that parkour. If they don't include exaggerated swagger in the traversal in the next game, that is a massive downgrade, I'll tell you what. No. Hunter House, how many Spider-Man games do you think Insomniac will make? Right now, I'm going to say a trilogy. That's the safest bet. I definitely think it's a trilogy. Miles is like a 1.5. It's not really a 2. So I think we might get Marvel's Spider-Man, which we have now, Miles Morales, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, possibly another spin-off game, and then Marvel's Spider-Man 3. So maybe 5 games plus. But who knows? There's going to be a lot of interesting factors to see how they handle that in the game. Or for their universe that they're crafting. Let's see. Let's go here, let's fast travel to this base. I'm going to do this one more base, guys, and then I'm going to stop streaming because I got to help out around the house and finish up the tree, which is looking very, very pretty. But, let's see. I think that was Larlock or Arlock who posted this. The ability to switch on the symbiote suit anytime with every suit, like we should be able to press one button to switch. Web of Shadows style, a man of culture, I see. That is a fact, dude. If they do that in the sequel, it's a win. It's an instant win. Which, by the way, if there is a possibility that the symbiote is utilized in the same sense as Web of Shadows, but for the sequel of Marvel Spider-Man running exclusively on PS5, you would think they would have all the assets at their disposal to make the best possible symbiote mechanics and seamlessly transition from the red suit to the black suit whenever you want in the sequel as well. So if they can't do that in a next-gen game, I don't know what's going on. So that would be, I would be upset personally if they don't do that, but I'm very much hoping that that's the route that they take. Like, oh, you're swinging through the city as Peter, he's wearing the advanced suit, you press one button, bam, he's in the black suit. That would be so sick if they do that. I would want them to do that the most. But yes, let's see what else.
You got a donation, by the way.
Oh, I did? Thank you so much to whoever donated. For some reason, it's not popping up on my phone. Oh, I see it now. £5 from Optimum G. Thank you so much, dude. Hopefully in the sequel, web swinging will be much more skill-based and intense. I want it to resemble the swinging of TASM 2? Whoa, wait a minute, bro. Hold on. Wait. I think you mean Spider-Man 2, because the Amazing Spider-Man 2, which, fun fact, one of our fellow Spidey Squad members, Spidey Skater Boy, actually gave Beanox the idea, if you guys know this, of the L2, R2 swinging instead of just R2 and that's it. He actually gave them, like, some inclination of, like, that would be cool if you could do that. And they actually listened to him in like one of the fan feedback posts that they did, and it worked out really well because that's how the game was designed. But man, if you think that the Amazing Spider-Man 2 swinging is on par with this game's or Spider-Man PS4's, I am sorry, sir, but I do not agree with you. I'm assuming you mean Spider-Man 2. I would think that's what you mean with Spider-Man 2, that game for sure. That definitely is much more physics-based, realistic, and what was it? You know, like grounded in the sense like if you mess up, you mess up, and you got to recuperate your swinging. And it's not like holding your hand. Where although I do understand the complaint that some people say for the Spider-Man 2 game or Spider-Man PS4 versus Spider-Man 2 is that Spider-Man PS4 feels a bit more automated in the sense of you can't really mess up. Like if you swing. You swing, and you do an air trick, you do an air trick. Whereas in Spider-Man PS4, if you don't do an air trick or you don't swing, there's fall damage and you die. But also is that it's physics-based, so you're swinging a bit too low to the ground, and your swing arc might cut off, and like the web line attached to the building might snap, which is what Bruce Campbell makes fun of you during the tutorial. Like, you know, oh, gravity, my favorite friend. You're like, oh, he's swinging from nothing. You can't swing from nothing. Like, it's so good. So, oh, you mean the movie? I see. Well, yeah, I get that. Oh, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 movie? Well, yeah, sure. Like, there's a lot of cool, stylish moves he does in the film. And, like, he's climbing up the web. He's, like, doing, like, air turns in the midair. Oh, my God. Okay, before I forget right now. Perfect that you brought that up, Optimum G. One factor which someone was also asking earlier, which feature would you want to see in the sequel? Right now, I'm demanding it. Like, you know, I usually don't demand things for, you know, Spider-Man games because in Insomniac we trust. And I always, you know, Miles was great, Spider-Man PS4 was great. One thing I'm absolutely demanding, that was sick, he just did the Mega Venom Blast in midair. One thing I'm absolutely demanding for the sequel, for sure in terms of traversal, is dual web swinging. Two-handed web swinging. Controllable, two-handed web swinging, deciding where you want to go in the city. You can control where the webs go. That's definitely more skill-based, but also it allows you to try and hone your momentum and sense of direction. Like, I'm going to shoot a web to the sides, the left and right, but also that would, you know, enhance speed. That would make him go faster. That would also give you a purpose to use both web shooters at once when swinging, instead of just, like, he web zips with both web shooters when zipping forward. You see him, like, put out two web shooters at once during his movements, but it's not, like, fully manual controllable web swinging with that. If they do dual web swinging, like they even did that in Spider-Man 3 the game, which is actually a factor I really love about the game. If they do that for the sequel, in the black suit, that's a win. That is an instant win in my book, and I would be so happy if I saw that feature return, which is something I thought was going to happen in Spider-Man PS4, where they didn't do that, but they had the web swinging and the web tunnel, which was pretty cool, and the web zipping have two webs shoot out at once, but it wasn't in the sense of, oh, this is going to have fully manual controlling web swinging in the same sense of Spider-Man 3 or Web of Shadows with the dual swinging, but it was just one-handed swinging, and that was it. Where the dual swinging should definitely come back for the sequel. I think that's a must-have for sure. With parkour and expansive mechanics with the combat and stuff, I would be so down for that if they do that. Let's see. Avoid these clowns. Go above them. But yeah, great question. Great question, for sure. And yeah, the Amazing Spider-Man 2 movie has great scenes with, Andrew swinging as Peter. But for now, the games already do a fantastic job, implementing the same exact animation from the Amazing Spider-Man 2 into the game. So already you have that in the game itself. So, I mean, what more could you ask for other than, I guess, climbing web lines and more physics-based swinging instead of the animation style that they have going on? Who knows? I'm excited, but we will see what happens. But I'm curious to see how it will turn out. Boom, done, finished. Yeah, great insight for sure.
Another donation is.
What about you, Franco? Like you said, parkour for sure. That's a good one. Anything else that you could think of with combat or suit? Oh, another question. Justin Holland, maybe post suit Black Peter will gain inspiration from it and show how much he doesn't need it. $5 from Justin Holland. Thank you so much, Justin. Hopefully you're doing okay. Thank you so much for your question. Yeah, like I would love to see a full narrative arc showcased with Peter in the black suit and Miles and how that affects him on a personal level and the struggles and trauma that he might have to face through with that on and what the consequences could be of him wearing it too long maybe. So that'd be cool to see how they further that narrative progression and seeing what it's doing to Harry, keeping him alive, but he's sick. So what would it do to someone who's already healthy? And specifically for someone like Peter who already has powers. And he has like a healing factor and can regenerate stuff pretty much. Not as like a big healing factor like Wolverine, but if he gets shot, he can recuperate from it relatively quickly with his healing abilities. But if he gets too damaged, like the Doc Ock fight pretty much, then he has to take time to heal. But yeah, it's pretty heavy to see what the sequel could entail for the narrative. Yeah, YT, Javi, that's an interesting one. Hey, Evan, what about the slingshot mechanic coming back too? That would be cool. I never really used it as much in Spider-Man 2, funny enough, or even the Amazing Spider-Man 2, but I definitely understand the appeal of it, and I think that for this game's style of swinging, that'd be very fun to incorporate for, building up speed, quickly slingshot out, do some sweet air tricks, use the symbiote to gain even more momentum, and then done. That'd be so cool if they incorporated that more. And that'd be another, leg up from the traversal that we have now for Miles and Spider-Man PS4. But for you, Franco, any last words of any possible features you want them to incorporate for the sequel? And then I might stop streaming.
No, I think we've got all the points for wanting to improve in the sequel. I think we got it all run down.
Nice. Okay then, boys, I think that might be it. Hour 37. We did all the Friendly Neighborhood Spider App side missions, I believe. I think there's... Wait, is there the Uptown Pride suit somewhere? Is that available to purchase or to acquire yet? No? Huh, I guess I have to do the crimes, too. I haven't done those yet, but... I think I've done all the Friendly Neighborhood stuff. We just did all the main side stuff to build up more... Oh, no, there it is. Thank you, Spider-Man. So we'll do that. We'll go get the gift, which is the Uptown Pride suit. Let's see. Any final questions while we're swinging to get this suit from you guys? I know that you guys are probably very interested in the sequel, the Marvel stuff too, Cyberpunk, which was fun. Did you guys enjoy that? I'd love to know. Did you guys enjoy my big rant of Cyberpunk? Because I know that was a massive discussion point for this stream, but I think it's important to discuss about the status of the gaming industry and see where it's headed. And see what the status is for consumers and the products that they're selling for these game developers. But yeah, I definitely thought I had fun talking about it, and I'm sure Franco did too. But yeah, sometimes even though we love Spider-Man, it's important to discuss about the other stuff going on in the gaming world besides just Marvel stuff. But who knows? Let's see. Larluck, how much do you want to bet Peter is going to die in the third game? It makes sense because that's when they are going to do Goblin. Well, we don't know. You know, right now we have Norman Osborn as Green Goblin, Harry Osborn as Venom, Dr. Connors as the Lizard, and Yuri Watanabe as the Wraith, as the most likely characters to be the villain/antagonists for Spider-Man 2. You know, Marvel's Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man PS5, whatever it's going to be. Those are the most teased at characters to be the foes of that game's story. So right now, and they know, Insomniac is well aware that we want to see the black suit. Ouch, Miles just broke his back. Insomniac is well aware that the fans are really wanting to see the black suit in the game. They've already teased it twice at this point, so now it's kind of like, okay, enough teasing. We've waited, at that point when the sequel comes out, it would be 4 or 5 years. Jesus. So at that point, you would want the sequel to focus on the black suit and Venom as the main threats. So with him dying, I think it's a bit too soon for now. Maybe they might have that. Who knows? But for now, I think it's still in their best interest to keep Peter alive, especially since Yuri Lowenthal is such a good Peter Parker. They wouldn't want to scoop that out of the story or taint that in any way. Black Lives Matter. Represent always. One more question from Justin. I think we'll stop the stream here. Maybe Peter will retire as Spider-Man, and would you compare Miles Morales to Arkham Origins? I would say that in the sense that they're both Christmas games, sure, but Arkham Origins is like a full-fledged game, just in the sense of it's made by a different developer. This is still made by Insomniac, but it's shorter in scope and scale, but it's the same map, same assets, just polished a bit more with Miles. And also the other question was, maybe Peter will retire? I don't think so. He's 24 now. He's still in his prime. He's not like, I'm 22, Peter's 24. He's not an old fart yet, so I think he still has a lot of stuff to do as Spider-Man. So I think we're just getting started with his story, and especially if they include the black suit in there, that's going to be a lot of really fun gameplay assets to dive into. But anyways, guys, we did a lot of side stuff. We got the Uptown Pride suit from our friendly neighbors in New York City. We did all the Roxxon bases. There's a couple more underground bases left. We're going to do those next stream and then probably finish the game. And also did all the Peter side missions as well. We did those too. Talked about Cyberpunk. We talked about the Marvel shows. Talked about Spider-Man 2. And the MCU news of Willem Dafoe and Thomas Hayden Church returning as Green Goblin / Norman Osborn and Flint Marko / Sandman. It's crazy. I don't know what the hell that movie's going to be turning into. I'm very confused and concerned about it right now, but hopefully it works out well for the people involved, but we will see what exactly happens. Any final words for the chat, Franco, and any last statements wanting to discuss?
No, maybe just, thank everybody for joining us today. It was very fun. Always a pleasure to talk with my main man, like the Chad, Mr. Evan Palarca. It's always fun to hang out with you and be able to talk about all sorts of topics, whether it's like Spider-Man related or the gaming industry, movies, all that stuff. So yeah, no, it's awesome, being here, and all you guys watching as well. Thank you all so much for your support. It really means the world to us.
Thanks, bro. Well, thank you all for tuning in. Thank you, Franco, again, for always being my right-hand man for all these streams. For without him, I couldn't do it at all. Thank you guys for all your amazing comments. I'm sorry. Again, I'm terrible at streams. I promise I'll do better at reading all your comments and chats and questions next time. Promise, for sure. But until then, thank you all so much for watching, everybody. Stay spectacular, Spidey fans. Stay awesome, true believers. And until next time, peace out.
Take care, guys.